He was so institutionalized, his first day home, he crept into his brother's bed and took his wife. That's right. He, on his first day home, took his own brother's wife, slept in his own brother's bed after sleeping in prison beds for 25 years. He crept into his own brother's bed. His brother took him in after 25 plus years in prison and gave him a place to stay so he can get on his feet. And he responded by getting in bed with his brother's wife. This didn't happen overnight. He planned and plotted this from prison. That's right. His name was O.G. Guppy. And when O.G. Guppy got home, he did what he always wanted to do. Took his brother's life by starting with his brother's wife. But it didn't just happen there. The wife was conspiring with him while he was still in prison. And Guppy would talk to her late nights on the phone, call to talk to his brother. And he would always talk to his brother, but eventually he would hand the phone over to his wife, and his wife would talk to Guppy. And Guppy began sowing seeds of discord. He was manipulating the situation. And the wife, she began to fall for Guppy. And this is a tragic story on how institutionalization happens to a man. And a man who's in prison, who should be bettering himself, is actually making himself worse. He was so institutionalized when he got out, he rode around with 2 shanks. That's right. Dude rode around in his car with 2 shanks, his brother's car. He took his own brother's vehicle. He eventually had his brother's wife, who was still his brother's wife, call the police and charge his own brother, who never had a criminal record, with domestic abuse. She lied. They locked his brother up and they traded places. You ever seen that movie, Trading Places? That's exactly what happened. On Face Off, they changed lives. On Face Off, they changed faces. But this one, they didn't change faces. They just changed cages. One was a free bird, the other was a jail bird. And they changed places. Guppy took his brother's place, and his brother took Guppy's place. She accused that man of that. Of course, he bonded out, but now he had to go to court, and she put a charge on him. A restraining order was placed on Guppy's brother, and Guppy's brother took a downward spiral. He got depressed, started drinking that alcohol, kind of gave up on life. And you know what made it even worse? Guppy's mama took Guppy's side over his brother. She felt like Guppy's brother always thought he was better than everybody else because he lived a better life, worked a 9 to 5, even took care of his own kids. But the whole time, his own family had bitter animosity towards him, and he never knew it. Guppy was even brainwashing his own mother to turn against her own son, the son who was a good son. And she took the side of the institutionalized son, who sat in prison and became a worse man. So bad that he came home and destroyed his entire family. Because now his brother was an alcoholic. He got DUIs and wound up incarcerated and locked up on 3 and 4 DUIs. He lost a house. Guess who got his house? His own brother. That's right. Guppy took his brother's house, his wife. The only thing he didn't take was his kids, because they were smart enough to see the difference. But the wife, she stayed with Guppy, and they had a relationship. And Guppy had them 2 shanks. He wound up back in prison, and that's how I know the story. After 25 years of being in prison, he came from an affluent family. That's right. The brother wasn't the only one who got a chance, because the family took care of Guppy too. They saved money for his college tuition. But before he ever made it to college, he wound up, getting an undergraduate degree in the parish jail. He was always shooting at heroin. He liked that boy, put in his arm. And the more enjoyment he got from that boy, the further down the rabbit hole he went. And guess what he did? Armed robbery. Because his parents, Back in the 70s, they were tired of giving him money. Going into the 80s, they said enough is enough. They put their foot down. If you ain't going to give me no money, I'm going to go get it myself because I need it in my arm. He was addicted to that dope. Dope destroyed a lot of lives. And when he went to Angola, they had dope up there too in the 80s and the 90s. And he started shooting that dope. He even admitted that I spent my college tuition that my parents saved when I was a kid. I used that money instead of going to university. I shot dope in the penitentiary. I became more of a dope addict. Look at my tattoos. He had tattoos covering his needle marks on his arms. And he was saying, man, when I got home, I took my brother's wife. She was fine. And I'm thinking to myself, this dude's a savage. How can you spend 25 years in prison and your brother who sent you money for commissary, zuzus and wham-whams because you done used all your parents' money over the 25-year course? In the first decade you spent in prison, your father lost his life, brokenhearted, and your mother gave you her Social Security check and she's all spent out, and all you had was your brother who had a job, and you took his wife when you got out? Dude's like, yeah, I did that. And I had them 2 shanks, and that's how I wound up back in prison. When cops pulled him over, they found them 2 shanks. They said, whoa, put your hands up. He grabbed them 2 shanks. He said, I'm about that life. And the cop said, put it down, put it down. He said, I'll go back to jail. He had them 2 shanks because he started shooting that dope again on the street. He had that dope in the car. He was still on parole. And when they found that dope in that car, they charged him. I said, what kind of shanks you had, man? He said, man, I had real shanks. I said, you ain't go get no hunting knife or Rambo knife? He said, I ain't had no Rambo knife, man. I had 2 shanks. I said, what kind of shanks you made on the street? He said, the same kind I made in prison. He found rusted pieces of metal, sharpened them up, threw duct tape on them, you know what I mean? Wrapped them up with bed sheets for a handle, and he rode around town with them. 2 shanks. He said, I stayed strapped up. I said, why you ain't go get a heater? He said, I don't need that no more. That's back when I was young. He said, I learned to work with these tools, 2 blades. I said, on the street? He said, I don't need no heater. I said, I got you, bro. Cool. Be cool. You know what I mean? You ain't got 2 shanks on you right now, right? Because I'm thinking, man, if this dude took his own brother's wife, he ain't gonna have no issue with jigging me behind me, question him about his choice of weaponry. So cool, you don't want to use a heater. You want to use the shanks. So what the cops did when they drew down on you? He said, I told you what I told him. I said, what you told him? He said, man, I'm going to go back to jail. I'm about that life. And I'm like, dang, you a savage. But I ain't say nothing. I just started because I ain't want him to get me. You know what I mean? Dude got his own brother. You saw American Me, right? Little puppet, big puppet. And little puppet choked his little puppet. And he's like, God damn me. God damn me. After he strangled his brother's life, his brother's like, I just got married, that's it. I think I got that girl pregnant. You know, mama gonna be happy. I'm gonna give her a little kid. But they was part of the mafia. And little puppet died by the hands of big puppet. Well, Guppy was the younger brother, and he took the older brother out. Now he became an alcoholic, depressed. Ruined the family, his own family. That's what institutionalization does you. And that's why I tell these dudes when I was in prison, I was careful who I let speak into my life. You know what I mean? I had to make changes. I had to move in silence. You know what I mean? I made mistakes. I made bad decisions. I did things I shouldn't have did. But I ain't an idiot, so I learn. I live and I learn. And I become better. And I adapt. And Guppy, he was planning and plotting. And he still, he had this woman wrapped around his finger so much that she was still writing him letters. Of course, she moved on because now she was for the streets. She was a settled woman. Now she was for the streets in her late 50s, going into her 60s. Man, that's savage. You're supposed to be better. You do that in your 20s and your teens. Oh, man, welcome to prison. Welcome to the Pen and The Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison-related channel experience on YouTube. Give me a like and subscribe. I got many more videos in my library of stories that you've never heard. If you want something outside of the normal crime and prison experience, then you found it here. Man, this dude ruined his whole family. And going into 2026, if you want to be better, because you could be institutionalized on the streets. You don't want to be institutionalized on the streets. Man, what a disgrace. Do better. Be better. Don't be manipulative like no witch. Man, let's get this.